Hi, I'm Lisa. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be listening to Mark chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. So they arrived at the other side of the lake, in the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus climbed out of the boat, a man possessed by an evil spirit came out from a cemetery to meet him. This man lived among the burial caves and could no longer be restrained, even with a chain. Whenever he was put into chains and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the chains from his wrists and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Day and night he wandered among the burial caves and in the hills, howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. When Jesus was still some distance away, the man saw him, ran to meet him, and bowed low before him. With a shriek he screamed,
"Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you, don't torture me!"
For Jesus had already said to the spirit, "Come out of the man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" And he replied,
"My name is Legion, because there are many of us inside this man."
Then the evil spirits begged him again and again not to send them to some distant place. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby.
"Send us into those pigs,"
The spirits begged.
"Let us enter them."
So Jesus gave them permission. The evil spirits came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the entire herd of 2,000 pigs plunged down the steep hillside into the lake and drowned in the water. The herdsmen fled to the nearby town and the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. People rushed out to see what had happened. A crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. He was sitting there, fully clothed and perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. Then those who had seen what happened told the others about the demon-possessed man and the pigs, and the crowd began pleading with Jesus to go away and leave them alone. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus said, "No, go home to your family, and tell them everything the Lord has done for you, and how merciful he has been." So the man started off to visit the 10 towns of that region, and began to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed at what he told them. Jesus heals in response to faith. Jesus got into the boat again and went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him.
"My little daughter is dying,"
he said.
"Please, come and lay your hands on her. Heal her so she can live."
Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself,
"If I can just touch his robe, I will be healed."
Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him. So he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him,
"Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me?"
But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." While he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him,
"Your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now."
But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." Then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead. She's only asleep." The crowd laughed at him, but he made them all leave, and he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to give her something to eat.
And now I'm going to read Mark chapter 5 study application. 5:1-2. Although we cannot be sure why a demon possession occurs, we know that evil spirits can use the human body to distort and destroy people's relationships with God and likeliness to Him. Even today, demons are dangerous, powerful, and destructive. While it is important to recognize their evil activity, we should avoid any curiosity about or involvement with demonic forces or the occult. Deuteronomy 18:10-12. If we resist the devil and his influences, he will flee from us. James 4:7. Mark 5:7. The demon screamed at Jesus, "Why are you interfering with me?" It was a shriek of fear, defense, and rebellion against God. No one today would like to admit to being demon possessed, but most of our society, like the demon, is screaming to God, the church, and the Christian values. Why are you interfering with me? Get out of my life. When people reject Jesus Christ and his authority, they put themselves on the side of the demons and are hiding in the same direction. Every person must ask, will I choose anonymity and self-will leading to destruction, or will I choose Christ's loving leadership over my life, giving me forgiveness, healing from sin, cleansing, and true freedom? The answer has eternal implications. 5:9. The evil spirit said, "It's time." The evil spirit said its name was Legion. A legion was the largest unit of the Roman army, consisting of 3,000 to 6,000 soldiers. This man was possessed by many demons. Mark 5:10. Mark often highlights the supernatural struggle between Jesus and Satan. The demons' goal was to control the humans they inhabited. Jesus' goal was to give people freedom from sin and Satan's control. The demons knew they had no power over Jesus, so they simply begged not to be sent to some distant place, the bottomless pit in Luke 8:31. Jesus granted their request to enter into the herd of pigs, 5:13, but ended their destructive work in people. Perhaps Jesus let the demons destroy the pigs to demonstrate his own superiority over a very powerful yet destructive force. He could have sent them to hell, but he did not, because the time in the judgment had not yet come. In the end, the devil and all his demons will be sent into eternal fire. Matthew 25:41. Mark 5:11. According to the Old Testament law, Leviticus 11:7, pigs were unclean animals. This meant that they could not be eaten or even touched by a Jew. This incident took place southeast of the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Gerasenes, a Gentile region, which explains how a herd of pigs could be involved. 5:17. After such a wonderful miracle of saving a man's life, why did the people want Jesus to leave? They were undoubtedly afraid of his supernatural power. They may have also feared that Jesus would continue destroying their pigs, their livelihood. They would rather give up Jesus than lose their source of income and security. 5:19. Jesus told his man to tell his friends about the miraculous healing. Most of the time, Jesus urged those he healed to keep quiet. Why the difference? 1. The demon-possessed man had been alone and unable to speak, telling others what Jesus did for him would prove that he was healed. 2. This was mainly a Gentile and a pagan area, so Jesus was not expecting great crowds to follow him or religious leaders to hinder him. 3. By sending the man away with the good news, Jesus was expanding his ministry to people who were not Jews. 5:19-20. This man had been demon-possessed, but became a living example of Jesus' power. He wanted to go with Jesus, but Jesus told him to go home and share his story with his friends. If you have experienced Jesus' power in your life, are you, like this man, enthusiastically sharing the good news with those around you? Just as we would tell others about a doctor who cured a physical disease, we should tell about Christ who cures our sin. 5:20. These 10 towns were located southeast of the Sea of Galilee, 10 cities, each with its own independent government, formed an alliance for protection and for increased trade opportunities. These cities had been settled several centuries earlier by the Greek traders and immigrants. Although Jews also lived in the area, they were not in the majority. Many people from the 10 towns followed Jesus. Matthew 4:25 and Mark 5:22. Jesus went back across the Sea of Galilee, probably landing at the Capernaum. Jairus was the elected leader of the local synagogue, responsible for supervising worship, running the weekly school, and caring for the building. Many synagogue leaders had chose ties to the Pharisees. It is likely, therefore, that some synagogue rulers had been pressured not to support Jesus. For Jairus to bow before Jesus was a significant and perhaps daring act of respect and worship. 5:25-34. The woman had a seemingly incredible condition, causing her to bleed constantly. This may have been a menstrual or urine disorder, that would have made her ritually unclean and excluded her from most social contact. She desperately wanted Jesus to heal her, but she knew that her bleeding would cause Jesus to be unclean under Jewish law if she touched him. Sometimes we feel that our problem will keep us from God, but he is always ready to help, no matter how impossible the problem seems to us. We should never allow our fear to keep us from approaching him. 5:31. It was virtually impossible to get close to Jesus, but one woman fought her way desperately through the crowd in order to touch him. As soon as she did, she was healed. What a difference between the crowds who are curious about Jesus and the few who reach out and touch him. Today, many people are vaguely familiar with Jesus, but nothing in their lives is changed or bettered by this passing acquaintance. It is only faith that releases God's healing power. More beyond curiosity, reach out to Christ in faith. That touch will change your life forever. 5:35:36. Jairus' crisis made him feel confused, afraid, and without hope. Jesus' words to Jairus in the midst of the crisis speak to us as well. Don't be afraid, just have faith in Jesus. There is both hope and promise. The next time you feel hopeless and afraid, look at your problem from Jesus' point of view. Then don't be afraid, just have faith. 5:38. Loud weeping and wailing were customary as a person's death. Lack of them was the ultimate disgrace and disrespect. Some people, usually women, made mourning a profession and were paid by the dead person's family to weep over the body. On the day of death, the body was carried through the streets, followed by mourners, family members, and friends. 5:39:40. The mourners laughed at Jesus when he said, "The child isn't dead, she's only asleep." The girl was dead, but Jesus used the image of sleep to indicate that her condition was temporary and that she would be restored. Jesus tolerated the crowd's abuse in order to teach an important lesson about maintaining hope and trust in him. Today, most of the world laughs at Christ's claims. When you are belittled for expressing faith in Jesus and hope for eternal life, remember that unbelievers don't see from God's perspective. For a clear statement about life after death, see 1 Ephesians 4:13-14, Mark 5:41-42. Jesus not only demonstrated great power, he also showed tremendous compassion. Jesus' power over nature and evil spirits and death was motivated by compassion. For a demon-possessed man who lived among tombs, a diseased woman, and the family of a dead girl, the rabbis of the day, Jesus told the girl's parents not to spread the news of the miracle. He wanted the facts to speak for themselves, and the time was not yet right for a major confrontation with the religious leaders. Jesus still had much to accomplish, and he didn't want people following him just to see his miracles. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below in the comment box. Did that say that part?